Hello, in today's lecture, we are going to start with Jaipur Prajamandal. In the previous lecture, I have discussed what are the reasons for the Prajamandal movement, specifically taking part in all different parts of the country. Today, we are going to focus more on the Rajasthan state and specifically on the Jaipur Prajamandal, which was the first such institution in Rajasthan. Okay, so as I mentioned, a few details from yesterday itself. That first detail was that Rajputana Madhya Bharat Sabha came into existence in 1919, and it was formed by Jamnalal Bajaj of Sikar, Govind Das of Jabalpur, Ganesh Shankar Vidyarthi of Gwalior, Chand Karan Sharada of Ajmer, Swami Narsingh Dev of Jaipur, Arjun Lal Sethi of Jaipur, Vijay Singh Pathik of Bulandshahr, Kesri Singh Bharhat. And the third conference of this Rajput Madhya Bharat Sabha was organized in 1920 under the chairmanship of Jamnalal Bajaj. And during this time, Rajasthan Kesri, a newspaper, was also started to mobilize a mass movement by Vijay Singh Pathik and co-edited by Ram Narayan Chaudhary. Vijay Singh Pathik also started a newspaper called as Tarun Rajasthan, which was then named Naveen Rajasthan because it was banned. So all the Rajputana Madhya Bharat Sabha was one of the important political organization for which was actually inciting the mass movements in the princely state. You can say inciting or actually motivating the mass movements. There's an ambiguity with there's a confusion with regards to headquarters. A few of the textbook mention its headquarter in Kanpur, while the NIC, that is the government website, shows it to be Ajmer. Nevertheless, we should understand with context to Rajasthan, the third conference was held in Ajmer, okay, and it was under the chairmanship of Jamnalal Bajaj. And you know that there were two important sessions: Nagpur Congress session, where the princes were asked to grant the democratic government to their subjects, and other was Haripura session. In Haripura session, there was a demand of responsible government and the guaranteeing of the civil liberties were raised. Gandhi in 1939 opined in Tripuri session that initially the policy of non-interference of Congress in the states was a perfect piece of statesmanship. And then he goes on to say that now, if the people are there and have become awakened, and they have a determination to go through a long-term suffering for vindication of their just rights, the moment they become ready, the legal, constitutional, and artificial boundary was destroyed. So basically, this marks one of the important statements, because initially Congress was not willing to participate in the mass movements within the princely states. Now Congress was giving them was actually all open arms to all these kind of reports, all these kind of mass movements. Now what happens is initially Madhav Singh II was the ruler of Jaipur from 1880 to 1922. He actually was a very sort of modern kind of person, and he wanted to modernize the Jaipur. So basically, during this time, the state's royal council was replaced by a 4-member Mahakama Aliya Council. This was the time when direct interaction was taking place between the crown and the Jaipur state. And in fact, Madhav Singh II took part in 1902 coronation participation. There is a big trivia. You can say one of the fact that you can understand, when you can just just because I have time, so I'm going to share that when Madhu Singh Rao went to the London for the coronation ceremony, he actually took with him big silver jars in which Ganga water was placed, and he also took along with him an idol of a family's deity. Why? Because at those times, if you cross high seas, then you are actually out of the sort of biradari, you can say. Here you are out of the dharmic fold. So actually this was the case. So and in that particular time, he also made a judicial setup with final appeals to the Council of State. So basically, he was modernizing Jaipur state in general. So courts of district judge was there, subordinate judge were there, revenue-related matters were taken, or civil matters were taken in municipal courts, while criminal matters were taken in session courts, through assistant judges, assistant session judges, and magistrates. Okay, and the final appeal was given to the Council of State. Now, what happens is, during this time only, a cotton graining factory was also established in 1912. And when World War I broke out, Jaipur actually was assisting the imperial war effort. In fact, Jaipur State's transport forces also participated in World War I. Now, what is happening in 1921? Madhu Singh Rao II was ill, and what he did in the sense of administration, he appointed something called as Mahkama Khas. And apart from this Council of State that was already there. Now, this dual sort of arrangement was not that successful, and soon afterwards, like in 1922, he died, and he was succeeded by Man Singh II, and he was actually an adopted son, and he could not actually have a full ruling powers until he attains majority. So a majority he would attain on 14th March 1931. So from 1922 to 1931, Jaipur was ruled by a Regency Council, and a chief court was constituted by Regency Council for the conduct of the powers. Now, again, there was a problem. There was a problem because Mahkama Khas was already there, and then there was a Council of State. So basically, different administrative reforms were taken by the Regency Council. One of the reforms were land settlement work, which was taken during the times of 1925 to 28. Now, political stirring was actually happening during the time of Madhu Singh time only. So what was happening, like Arjun Lal Sethi, one of the revolutionary that we are going to study later, was accused of training revolutionaries at his school called as Vardhaman Vidyalaya. He was then sentenced and externed from Jaipur, and later he made Ajmer as his base. During the same time, agrarian revolts were picking up, and basically these were the revolts between the Jat peasants and the Rajput landlords. And due to the nature of the local governance that allowed the Shekhawati chieftains to have a greater freedom, these chieftains, that is these Jagirdars, started to raise the land revenues, which only resented the Jat farmers. And there was a big time, you can say, a Jat mobilization was taking place. This was the time. So All India Jat Mahasabha also became active in Rajasthan. That is at that particular time, Rajputana. There were many agrarian revolts. Some of the important figures you can name is Ram Narayan Chaudhary. Okay, and in fact, Ram Narayan Chaudhary was actually one of the leading figures of the Jat mobilization or Jat farmer resentment. Okay, till the time of Will's report, and now there would come a Will's report where actually what will happen, all the Shekhawati chieftains will be made subordinate to the Jaipur state only. So that till that time, like in Will's report came in 1933. Till that time, this Jat resentment was actually at its peak. And during this time, different other political mobilizations were taking place. One of them grouping formed was Charkha Sangh. So Charkha Sangh was formed in 1926 under the leadership of Madan Lal Khaitan and Deshpande. And in an event where tax burden was being protested, a police firing took place and it killed one of the protesters. In the same year, 1927, Hiralal Shastri left his job in the state's administration, and he goes on to establish a Center for Education and Social Change called as Jeevan Kutir, which is in present day called as the Banasthali Vidyapeeth. In 1931, again the Council of State was replaced by the Mahkama Khas. Now remember, 1931 is the time when Raja Man Singh took over. And on April 5, 1931, on the Motilal Day, disturbances broke out in the Jaipur. And this was the time when Jaipur Prajamandal came to the existence. Now, what happens after the encouragement from Jamnalal Bajaj, Jaipur Prajamandal was formed with the founders Arjun Lal Sethi and Kapoor Chand Party. Kapoor Chand Party was a president at that particular time of Jaipur Prajamandal, but Jaipur administration refused to register the society and banned the Jaipur Prajamandal. So basically, what happens now? Jaipur Prajamandal, which was formed with the encouragement of Jamnalal Bajaj, and which was presided by Kapoor Chand Patni, was actually not allowed to get registered. Okay. Now, now what happens with efforts of Shastri in 1936? Now, with efforts of Shastri in 1936, again it gets rejuvenated, and this rejuvenated, you can say, Jaipur Prajamandal was then led by Chiranjeev Lal Mishra and Hiralal Shastri as its general secretary. So 1936 to 37, you can see Chiranjeev Lal again, because initially Jaipur Prajamandal was not able to get registered. So in 1936, with the efforts of Shastri and meetings at Banasthali, Prajamandal was rejuvenated, and Chiranjit Lal Mishra was made the president, and Hiralal Shastri was made the general secretary. Remember, in 1938, the Jaipur Prajamandal was presided over by, or the president of the Jaipur Prajamandal was Jamnalal Bajaj himself. Now, what happens? There was a meeting which was called by Jamnalal Bajaj, who was a president then in 1938. It was the first session of the Jaipur Prajamandal. It was called on 8th to 9th May. There were many resolutions that were passed. And the resolutions were actually calling for the responsible government, a legislative assembly, freedom of speech, employment exchange, postponement of the land revenue collection in the famine affected areas. And all these, when resolutions were passed, the Jaipur Prime Minister, then called as H. Biochand, declared that a body would be illegal if it is not duly registered through Public Society Act. And it was the time when Jaipur Prajamandal was banned actually. Okay. Now, so now what happens is, now Jaipur Prajamandal had to get a new face. So in 1938, Jaipur Rajya Prajamandal replaced the Jaipur Prajamandal. And this Jaipur Rajya Prajamandal, Jaipur Rajya Prajamandal in 1938, Jamnalal Bajaj becomes the president, Hiralal Shastri becomes the chairman, and Chiranjit Lal Mishra becomes the general secretary. In 1938, now there's a sequence of event. What happens is that Jaipur Prajamandal was actually replaced by Jaipur Rajya Prajamandal, and actually what was happening that there was a political propaganda that was going on the behest of the famine relief, and Jamnalal Bajaj was asked to come to Jaipur in December 1938. But what happens that Jaipur state bans his entry, and he was deboarded at Savai Madhopur railway station. And this led to one event and another. Shastri and Harpa Upadhyay goes and meets the Bajaj at Delhi, and Mahatma Gandhi at Bardoli. And till the opening weeks of 1939, there was no change in the Prime Minister Biochand's thought process. And it did not accept Jaipur Rajya Prajamandal or any other body which could represent the grievances of the people. So now what happens is that now he gives an ultimatum. Who gives an ultimatum? Bajaj gives an ultimatum, and he says that if the entry of his coming to Jaipur state is not lifted by February 1, what would happen? He would start doing satyagraha. And in 1939, with a series of satyagrahas, which eventually was like Jamnalal Bajaj was trying to enter the state, and he was given a court arrest. He was again expelled. He again re-enters. He again gets arrested. And all these things were taking place. And during this time, Gandhiji actually goes and says that if he is not being allowed, then he will make this as a national issue. So in April 20, 1940, after all this ruckus that was going around, the state accepted finally that Jaipur Rajya Prajamandal could take up the public grievances in the parliamentary way. And this was the time when actually again Jaipur Rajya Prajamandal got functional enough. It is to be noted that in 1931, after this ban was lifted, Hiralal Shastri became the president, and he actually called for the responsible government. But during this time only, the differences grew within, and Chiranjit Lal Mishra formed another party called as the Prajamandal Progressive Party. It should be noted that Jaipur Prajamandal did not participate in the Quit India movement in 1942. Alwar Prajamandal was another one which did not take part in the Quit India movement. So apart from Alwar Prajamandal, this was another Prajamandal which did not take part in the Quit India movement. Okay. Why Jaipur Prajamandal did not take part? Because of something called as the gentleman's agreement. So gentleman agreement took place, was actually signed between then Prime Minister Mirza Ismail. If somebody belongs to Jaipur, he would know there is something called as MI Road in Jaipur. So it is named on the Prime Minister Mirza Ismail. And the gentleman agreement between Mirza Ismail and Hiralal Shastri was the reason because of which Jaipur Prajamandal opted not to participate in 1942 Quit India movement. Okay, and in fact, the state administration also told the Prajamandal that it would not interfere in any anti-British campaign, and in turn, it promised to consider the issue of the responsible government. And because of this, Prajamandal, that is Jaipur Prajamandal, did not take participation in the Quit India movement. Now, this particular thing led to the feud in the this particular Jaipur Rajya Prajamandal. Okay. Now, what happens is there is a section led by Baba Harishchand, which forms something called as Azad Morcha. And other people were Ramkaran Joshi, Chiranjeev Lal Mishra, Daulat Bhandari, and Hansde Roy. And they form another morcha called as the Azad Morcha. And also remember that this particular time, when all these activities were going on, that is 1940s, Jaipur Rajya Prajamandal was not only not only focused on the responsible government, but also taking up the reforms. And Maharani Gayatri Devi, the then Maharani, started, she was the wife of Maharaja Man Singh II, started Maharani Gayatri Devi Public School in 1943. Podar family set up a Jaipur weaving and spinning mill, and which came into production in 1946. Jaipur metal industry was formed in 1945. So all these things were going on. And in 1942, Jaipur government appointed also committee to examine the issue of the constitutional reforms in the Jaipur state. And in 1944, for the first time, Maharaja of Jaipur announced constitutional reform in that particular state under the title Government of Jaipur Act 1944. Elections were held in Jaipur Municipal Council, and there were major constitutional reforms that took place, like bicameralism was introduced, and all these things were taking place. The first representative assembly was inaugurated in September 1945. So all these data you don't need to remember. Only the data that I have shown on the slide is more than sufficient. And another important figure associated with Jaipur Rajya Prajamandal is Pandit Devi Shankar Tiwari. He was the nominee of Prajamandal who got inducted in Jaipur's ministry in 1946, and he was there joined by Daulat Mal Bhandari. Now, Daulat Mal Bhandari will go on and become the Chief Justice. Okay, so he's an important figure in Rajasthan history. And as I told, that it was this particular Jaipur Rajya Prajamandal movement was not only about responsible government, but also about the social reforms. And in 1946, it led to the establishment of the Rajasthan University. So I hope I've been able to include all the important data that is relevant to this, relevant to the Jaipur Prajamandal. If you find a certain mistake, or if you find that these notes are having some kind of discrepancies, or any sort of doubt you have, you may share it to me. I may help you in this process. Okay, till then, take care. Bye-bye.